Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final session of Cycle 2016. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sticking through thick and thin and technical difficulties. Hopefully this last session here will be nuts and bolts practical, useful for you. We're talking about business plans. We've talked a lot about business, attitudes, wealth, money, many things. And where the rubber hits the road, as it were, when we're getting going, to implement ideas, we need to be able to put together a good business plan. So what is a good business plan? Let me bring up my PowerPoint. Hello. We're waiting for my computer to decide it wants to cooperate here. Hello. Where do we go? Okay, there we go. I guess my computer's cooperating. So this is very simple. After this one slide, you can leave if you want. There is beer and barbecue waiting again out there somewhere. Business Plans 101. The most crucial idea is to cut to the chase. You're dealing with business people. They are busy. I am busy. Whoever you're pitching, your pitch deck or your best friends who will work with you on the idea, whoever you're reaching out to with your business plan, they have other things. They have other opportunities. They have kids. They have responsibilities. They have things to do. You are competing for their time, their attention, and especially if you're their money, you are asking for something very important. You're asking for something that people don't give very easily or for no reason. So you have to respect that fact. I'm busy. Don't waste my time. Give me the essentials up front. With that, we can go. That's it. But I'm making a joke, but this is truly, I believe, the essential point. And I have dealt with many investors over the now many years that I've been working in the financial business. I have reviewed many business plans myself. And I will tell you that my incentive to get to the bottom line and to make an informed decision about this business plan is inversely proportional to the amount of work I have to do. And giving me a phone book sized business plan is not impressive if I have no interest in this business plan. I wouldn't want to have that much data before I know whether I'm interested in this subject or not. So cut to the chase, don't waste my time. Give me the essentials up front. If you keep these ideas in mind, you will have awesome business plans. Another thing that I find happens a lot, particularly with young people who are writing their first business plans or just starting out and working on this, is they get all hung up on the form of the business plan. What colors should I use? What kind of font should I have? Is white text on a black background more impressive? These things, yes, it matters. A sharper business plan is better than a not so sharp business plan. But the substance is much, much more important. You can have the sharpest business plan in the world, and if the idea is dumb or boring or unclear, many times the idea is actually might be good, but you can't really tell what the idea is. Substance matters much, much more than form. But, and I mentioned this before, but it's so important, I have to mention it again, you have to be professional. I just said, well, don't spend hours and weeks futzing over the font size you're going to use, but check the spelling, check the grammar. If you're pitching in English and your native language is Russian, Lithuanian, Mandarin, or whatever it is, get a native English speaker to review your business plan before you submit it to any English-speaking person, or the other way around in any language. Don't leave unfinished sentences. Don't rush it off half done. You are better off asking for a postponed meeting than to go into a meeting with a sloppy half-assed business plan. So don't obsess over the details, but make it sharp, make it professional. Where do you find structures and ideas for business plans? What is the best business plan? I cannot tell you this is the format for the best business plan, because obviously one size does not fit all. All different kinds of businesses and different kinds of pitches that you're making, and the structure of the plan will differ greatly. And it can be nonprofit, it can be for-profit, It can be looking for a single investor. It can be lots of different things. But there's tons of material out there. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. Before this talk, I just typed, I don't know if you can see it at the top there, I typed free business plan template. In fact, even before I got there, I typed free business and Google filled in plan template before I could even finish. And it came up with, you can see, 8,270,000 results. They weren't all relevant, but the first screen was full of links to places that will give you free business plans. And of course, you can hire people, professionals, to make a professional business plan for you. What I'm saying is, rather than spend time on, which line to put where and how much to indent and all these things, these are details. And there is help out there for you. The important thing is to not waste the time of your target. The important thing is to be clear, concise, be professional, and get help when you need it. I would like to give you another concept that I don't think you'll find readily available out there. A lot of people will give you advice on business plans and what's a great business plan. In addition to the main thought of being cut to the chase, being brief and pithy, this is related. You can think of sort of two plans, if you will. An executive summary, or a short plan, and a detailed full plan, or you can even think of it as a feasibility study for your entire project, whatever that is. When you're first approaching somebody, I think short is beautiful. The more concise and short the business plan, the easier it is for that person to look at it and decide, do I want more information? And nowadays, with the advent of not just the internet, but the connectivity of everything, the business plan doesn't have to be on paper. It can be electronic. So you can have a short, sharp, sweet, to the point presentation that has all kinds of links in there. And so if I get this thing and it says, here's the idea, here's how, the financial plan, and here's who's going to do it, blah, 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 I can click on those links. If I'm interested in who are the people doing this, and their bios are not pages and pages in the business plan, but it's just a link. If I know that's there, I know what a link looks like. I can follow that. So as a sort of thought exercise, I like to tell people, if you're going to write a business plan in your first approach, imagine that you are going to pitch Bill Gates, or Jobs is no longer with us, but somebody like that, and you go to their headquarters building, and you're on your way to the office to beg for a meeting with the great man or woman, and you get in the elevator and she's right there. You've got your chance. You're riding up to the 51st floor with Bill Gates or whomever. And so you have 30 seconds to pitch your plan. So imagine you're in this short elevator ride. What is the most important thing you can say before those doors open again? Is there one sentence you can get in this person's ear or in front of their eyes that will say, oh, tell me more? That's what you need to be thinking about in your business plan. And that should be you can think of it as the executive summary version, or you can think of it as the preliminary, or you can call it just the business plan, and have the wealth of detail, all these other things that you're just dying to tell your target about your project. Have it there, have it ready, but not to hit them right up front. If you hit them with too much up front, it's too much work. They're busy. And you decrease the chances that they'll pay attention to what you're trying to say. As far as the full plan, the full feasibility study, I like to say, how much is enough? One size does not fit all. The basic criteria, though, is that you need to be able to follow up. If the person is going to have questions, if they get interested in the idea, you hit them with that elevator speech of what the prime thing is and why it's good, and they say, oh, tell me more. You need to be able to follow up on that, tell me more. Demos are good if it's the sort of thing that you can demo, but even if it's not, say, a gadget or an IT project, it's an intellectual project, you could make a sample. Or you could even make a short animated video showing a user interacting with your idea or something. A demo is a very powerful way in a very short amount of time to communicate a lot about what you're trying to get across. So, mission impossible. I think it's mission possible. What you want to do, I say make it short, don't waste my time. So what am I trying to show? What is it that I want to get out of my mouth, or I want to put in front of their eyes with my iPad there or whatever? If I'm in the elevator with the investor, I want to show a good business. We talked about in Business 101, what is a good business? So rather than repeat all of that, I'll just hit on the highlights. Whatever it is that you're doing, it adds value. It creates or adds value to some field, some business, some industry, some product. It has to have competitive advantages. And it has to be scalable. We talked about scale is everything. If you want people to get excited about something, the scalability is the key to making you do that. This could be big, right? It's one thing if you come up with a really great tool for people who collect stamps to be able to wet the back of the stamp and put it in the book so they don't have to get glue on their tongue, from licking all those stamps. But that's a very small market. Even if you captured the whole market, it wouldn't be big business. Why is that going to excite an investor unless they happen to be a stamp collector? Scalability is the key to excitement. If people get your idea, but they're like, well, but okay, that's not the response you want. You want the person to go, wow, that could be big. Mission possible. It can be done. Key attributes of a good business plan. Credibility is absolutely key. And being professional is only the entry point of this. But the things you say, they have to be credible. Don't make outlandish claims. Don't make extreme cases. The numbers that you present, do the math. Have financials that make sense. If you promise this person, okay, you invest $100 and in 3 weeks we will have $1 million. Even if you could actually come up with a scenario that would justify this. Exaggerating the numbers a little bit, but I have seen not so exaggerated numbers. But the math just makes no sense. My business plan is I'm going to start a magazine, and in the first 3 months, we're going to have 100,000 new readers. And by the end of the first 3 years, we're going to be a global publication empire. The dream is beautiful, but it's just not believable. And so credibility is absolutely key. You have this great thing, you got out of the elevator, and they said, oh, tell me more. So now you're going into the office with the investor. They will only listen as long as they believe what you're saying. The moment you say something that pegs their bullshit meter, you're done. And they might politely say, okay, send me the plan later, we'll review it, I'll have my boys look. Nah. The moment that you say anything that they don't believe, you lose them. It's better not to say anything at all. If you're not sure about something, or you're not sure you can back it up, it's better to leave that out and come back to it later than to risk having them put you in the bullshitter category. Because that's the garbage can. You're done, no matter what polite words follow. Market research. This is very hard especially for younger people just starting out. You don't have the budget of Coca-Cola to survey hundreds of families in Indonesia and find out what flavor of bubbly drink they like. But actually, it's really hard for big companies to do this without screwing up too. It's hard all around. But to the degree possible, whatever degree is possible, your goal is to prove your plan. And that's not always as impossible as it may sound. If you remember my story of the Papa-Vova plan, where Andre's father-in-law had his trucking company and he had an idea for expanding it, the proof of concept was that he had letters from his customers saying, we need more refrigerated trucks than you have. If you buy another truck, we will give you our business. And he had more than one. He had several from these customers. And he was able to bring that to me with the business plan. And I was able to take that to Doug. And we were able to raise the money because we believed, again, credibility is key, And this data, these documents, were the proof that we needed to feel comfortable that, yes, if we invest in this, the customers are there, it looks low risk enough to take a chance. So this is an example of, he didn't have to be Coca-Cola. He just had some really good data that backed up the financials that were claimed in the business plan. So don't be lazy, don't be sloppy, and be creative about finding something that really makes your case. Be professional in all ways. Here's the aim high thing again. I know you've seen this slide before, but you really almost can't see enough. If you aim for the target, you're likely to hit below it. I was just pitched today on an idea, and I won't say anything about the idea because it's not mine. I won't share it. But it was instant. It was very short. I sat down for 5 minutes with someone in this room right now, and he showed me a couple slides, and in just that time, I got the idea, and I said, wow, that is a great idea. I would invest in that. That's a great idea. And then he talked about, well, we could go to these smaller customers to start out. And I said, well, why would you do that? If you sell it to the smaller customers, that won't stop you from selling it to the bigger customers first. Why not just go to the bigger customers? You can do both at the same time. Is there something I don't know? Okay.
And can you ask maybe this person want to share it?
If this person in this room wants to share their idea, they can. Okay, more ideas you've seen before, but this is all relevant to writing a really good business plan. The story I just told, go big or go home. If you have a great idea, don't be timid about applying it. If you have an idea to revolutionize the reserving tables at restaurants business, there's apps that do this and so on, but they're kind of clunky. Or if you have an idea to fix this, or a better mousetrap in this case, a better system for helping people get reservations at restaurants, there's no reason to limit that to just Lithuania or Ukraine or any place. Go worldwide. Why not? It's an app, right? Again, scale is everything. Scalability is everything. If you're thinking about an app, for example, don't think about an app that's going to help me in my home city or something. There's no reason for that. You can think big. If you have a good idea, then think about how far can I apply it. And if you can't apply it that far, you have to ask yourself how good an idea it is. Or maybe it's a good but unimportant idea. It's a good idea in a smaller area. It can help in this regards to propose something that matters to investors. And I don't just mean the financial return. Sometimes people have an interest in an industry, or they have a philanthropic interest, or they get something. They're a believer, say, in cryptocurrencies, and they're just gung-ho about cryptocurrencies. Or they love micro-manufacturing, 3D printing, and other micro-manufacturing technologies. They're on a mission from that. If you can find out what matters to the person that you're pitching, you can build this into your business plan. It makes for a much more powerful business plan. And again, as with the overall theme of everything we've been discussing here at Cycle, your business plan needs to promise the value that your good business is going to create. And the more value you create for the stakeholders, which can be your investors or anybody involved, the more value you create and the more value you can show you will create in your business plan, the greater your just reward. That's completely proper. This is a good thing. And your business plan is your first step in that direction. And I believe that's it. These are the main points. Yes, I talked quickly. We're at the end of our sessions here. But this is anything more than this, and we start getting into details. Anything more than this, I need to know what the business is that you propose. And obviously, we can't have general points about that. So I would say there's the Cycle website. If you don't know me, you can use the contact information there. Everybody else who's here, they know me, they know how to reach me. I am happy to review business plans for students. I have been doing it for more than 10 years. I have never refused to review a business plan. At some point, I may get so busy that I can't. But if you want feedback on business plans, I'm happy to provide it. If you are specifically very IT focused, I might outsource. We have so many great IT guys. Eddie has helped us a lot with his Toxic Cycle, and he's been very willing. You know, he offered during this cycle to not only review your business plan, but to help you start your startup at Cycle 2016. I'm sorry we didn't have more takers for that. But if you're watching this now, or at home, or later, you are now tapped in to a network of people who are willing to help you and will even look at your business plans and give you feedback. Some of that feedback may be painful. But these are the points. Again, don't waste my time. I want to know right up front, first sentence, you know, what is this going to do? What's the idea? And it needs to promise value-added, scalability, all these exciting things. It needs to be exciting. And the next thing I want to know is, does the math make sense? You know, is this credible? Do I believe this? And then I'll dig into the details. The people. Do you have the right people to do this? The SWOTs and all these other things. Actually, on the SWOTs and these other textbook things that you're supposed to include in your business plans, I would give you one little final word of advice. The more theoretical something is, you know, you ask somebody, well, what are your weaknesses? And of course, they're going to try to come up with some convincing thing that makes it look like they answered the question seriously. But of course, they're not going to tell you something that really is fatal about their weakness, because then they're done, right? So it's kind of bullshit. If you download a template for a business plan, or you go to your economics professor and he gives you his favorite business plan or hers, the more theoretical some aspect of that is, the less useful it is. What the person, your target, wants to know is what's real, how does it work, what do I need to understand, what's it going to do for me, how scalable is it, how excited am I? You'll be very practical about this business plan. And I think if you have that in mind, it'll be easy to do the things I'm saying. You'll come up with a very short business plan if you limit it to the practical details. And don't be afraid to link back to depth. You don't have to get everything right up front. The more you cram into that first one, the more the eyes will roll back in the head. Okay, I'll read that later. Okay? Shoot your mind. All right. Well, thank you very much. Business Plans 101. Short and sweet. See, I didn't waste your time. Your time is important too. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What financials do you interest in more? It's a cash flow, it's some ratios, liquidity, debt ratios. What?
Everything. Yeah. I told the story, or I mentioned before, that when I get a business plan, if it's in my hands, if it's a physical business plan, I've already been told the one idea. I mean, the idea thing is the very first thing, right? Or else there's no reason to look at it. But the very next thing I do is usually go to the back and look at the financials, and I look at it all. And the first, rather than any one particular line, the first thing I'm looking for is bullshit, right? Anything that just like, I can't believe this. And that can apply in any area. The next thing I'm looking for, as if I'm the investor, or I'm putting myself in the mind of the investor, is what's in it for me, right? And so, yeah, I guess I'm looking more bottom line areas here. And then, you know, depending on what the proposal is, am I being asked to take a position in shares, and then so it'll be distribution of future revenue. So then revenue becomes very important to me. You know, how would this yield for me? Or am I being asked for a loan? And you know, what's the payback? And then, you know, how believable do I believe that is that I will ever get paid back, and so on. And I will look for that sort of thing, and what collateral there might be. I just find that if you have to read through the whole plan looking for things that might be bullshit, it's a lot more work. If you go to the financials, it's all those words are boiled down to lines of numbers, and it's easier to spot the bullshit, or at least it seems that way to me. Does that answer the question? Is that close enough?
Yes, close enough. And, you just mentioned that you can also give a loan. What's the ratio is acceptable for you to give a loan?
Okay, so if I were to be interested in offering a loan, what kind of interest would I be in? You know, this is one of those one size does not fit all kinds of questions, and it's directly proportional to the risk in my case. If somebody in Donetsk asked me for a loan, then I want 100% interest per year or something. Something commensurate with the risk. If it's, I have a current loan outstanding in Belarus for a former student. The interest rate would be considered obscenely high in the United States. But by Belarusian standards, if you went to a bank and had you couldn't even get an unsecured loan, but even a secured loan, the interest, it's a lower interest rate than he would get in Belarus. So for me, it was a win. It was more than I would get, putting the money in a bank. For him, it was a win. It was much less than he would get taking money from a bank. And he offered me collateral. So even though it's Belarus and I have very little legal recourse there, A, I know the person, right? And B, he had collateral, and C, he offered me a high enough interest rate that I was willing to go there. So depending on yes.
Based on the presentation, I noticed, and on the previous ones, that basically it's highly focused on IT business, because basically not all physical businesses like mines, I don't know, meat shops or everything, they're not really scalable. Like mostly, it's 95% scalable businesses are basically IT businesses.
Well, or yeah, okay. So that's a fair. I don't know if it's a criticism, but it's a good point. And I will say that yes, even though I'm focused on the mining industry professionally, as an investor or as a speculator myself, I'm very interested in more scalable businesses than that. I agree with what you're saying. And in a mining company, it's so hard to build a mine. And then, you have to wait and get permissions and environmental studies. And then even if you build it, there's a chance the local government might steal it from you. Suddenly they decide this is a national interest asset that they have to have. There's so much risk. And then even if you succeed, okay, now you have a mine. Now we need to start the whole thing over again to try to build another one to grow the business. And meanwhile, you're mining the first one, so it's running out. You may run out of mine before you get to the next one. So I don't buy mining companies because I am looking for the organic growth of the mining company. I buy mining stocks because I know that if gold or copper goes up $10, the stock will go up $100 or something like that. I'm speculating on stocks.
Just the start of the question,
Right.
basically.
Sorry. So
Yeah. So it's mainly focused on IT business,
it's not just IT.
high risk, high reward type of businesses. Basically, do you advise against old school businesses, like not very scalable, but with low risk?
I wouldn't advise against them, but I would say as an investor, I'm less interested in that. And yes, broadly speaking, anything that has bricks and mortar involved, I'm not particularly interested. Even if you could scale it up, there's a lot of property, plant, and equipment, and people to keep track of. It puts me back more like a business owner. And a business owner is better than being worker flipping the hamburgers, but it's lower on my hierarchy of wealth generation than investor and speculator. So I don't think it has to be IT per se, and it might be that a lot more of my examples are IT focused because half of you guys are IT professionals, and I'm aware of my audience, as it were. But I'm not evading the point. I think you're quite right. I like IT, not only IT, but I like businesses that have that go big or go home. Another thing would be biomedical stuff. If you come up with a new vaccine that prevents the common cold, that's huge. That's that's as scalable as the human race. I would be very interested in that. So it doesn't have to be IT, but yes, I like scalability, and IT is just so easy because it's the easiest one to turn intellectual capital into financial capital. The biotech, you got to build a lab, you got to go through years of permitting and so on. It's big business, but it's expensive, time consuming. Yes, ma'am.
We have a question from Kirill. You just answered his first question, which was what kind of business matters to you? The second question was, what was the shortest and successful business plan that you reviewed?
Shortest successful business plan I reviewed. I would say that was the Nata's Village House business plan. because I gave a speech and I talked about how I would buy land outside of Minsk and wait for the city to grow. And, you know, and she basically said, oh, well, I can do that. And here's my business plan. And it was 1 page. It was handwritten on one page, you know, with an ink pen on one white piece of paper. But I trusted the person. She told me what it would cost. She told me what the advantages were. And I was potentially going to double my money in short order. So all the pieces were there. It didn't have to be fancy. Now, if somebody, you know, came on the elevator with me and stuffed a handwritten piece of paper, you know, that probably wouldn't work too well. So keep the context here. But this is the true fact. It was a 1 piece of paper, and I chose to invest. The Papavova business plan, I think that was only about 10 pages long, and half of it was financials. Half of it was, you know, if we get this customer, here's the cash flow. If we get these two, you know, and if we get 1 truck, if we get 2 trucks, it was all very credible because you had what they charged the customers, and then you had what the customers were saying. Well, we need this much more capacity, and then you know, so here's how it would. I mean, the math all worked out perfectly, and then the governments went and changed the rules. But oh well. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Very often ideas of startups are not viable, and go back to financials, you can see this, yes? Could you say now for students and for those who want to write this business plan, what financials shows that this idea is not viable?
Okay, actually, I'm not sure that the financials show that the idea is not viable. If you remember what I said is that the financials make a much shorter job of looking for bullshit, you know, numbers that don't make sense. But there's so many things that can go wrong with an idea, have nothing to do. I mean, you can have a great financial profile and you can have it backed up with data, and then, or like the Papavona story, the government's changed the rules and suddenly your plan's not viable. But other things are, like we were talking about before, Apple and the iPad. I just did not get the iPad. I couldn't understand why anybody would want something that was that big and wasn't a computer, or that was that small and wasn't just a phone. I mean, I didn't get it. I thought this is the stupidest thing Apple's ever done. Boy, was I wrong. But the opposite can happen. You can think something is great, and it just doesn't fly. You know, the people didn't like it, or you know, politics happen, or you know. So there are a lot of viability issues besides just, you know, do the numbers make sense? Sorry, is that not what you're asking?
The idea process, yes.
Yes, and yes, and I said, you know, get the idea in front of me first, and then the math. And if I like both, then I start digging into the story and, you know, the details and so on. Did you have a question, Bob?
Yeah. So imagine, as myself, I have a business and it's pretty successful. So when we started, we didn't have any financial plan, and I believe, like, I heard a lot of stories when you have like a startups and they don't even bother to start with a financial any. We just have idea, we just test it, and we go with the market and test it in the market if it works. And when we already achieve something and we already have this growth, we go to the investor and so on to get the investment. So do you believe if it's just an idea, there should be like a financial plan for, like, if you don't know anything about the market probably? Yeah. So if it's kind of like something new that does not exist in the world, how could you know, like, the financials?
Yeah, okay, I get the question. I'm not sure if the audience heard it, but the question, I guess, is, do you need a business plan or financial plan before you even start, you know, any kind of startup project? And by the way, I do not use startup to mean IT startup. I mean any business startup. And I think clearly the answer is no. I think Eddie touched on this in his talk. You know, don't overthink things. You know, if you spend years developing your perfect business plan before you even start on the project, it's going to be wrong anyway. You're going to be making all kinds of guesses and assumptions because you haven't even started building it. You don't know what the parameters are. You don't know what the limitations are, what the problems are going to be. If you're entering into an established or well understood business, maybe it might be a little bit different. But there's actually nothing wrong with two guys sitting around, or gals, or both, sitting around a table and saying, oh, what if we did this? Oh, well, that would be great. Well, let's try. And putting some sweat equity into it and beginning to get a grip on what the product or service or solution is, and then start doing this. So the specific talk here is, this is a business 101, this is business plans. So if we're talking about business plans, I would not recommend anybody doing that just to have one. It's not for me. I don't write a business plan for me. I know what I want to do. And yes, I may research costs and things like that, but the business plan is to give somebody else to get them involved. It could be a plan to get respected advisors on board. You may not even be looking for money yet. You might be looking for big names to support your idea. Or it could be that you're going to an investor, but you're reaching out to other people at this point. And whatever the purpose is, all these things I said, I think will help. You don't want to waste people's time. You want them to be able to get to that, oh, that's a great idea moment as quickly as possible. You want to be credible. You want to seem professional. And these are all things you can do. Yes, ma'am.
Would you be interested in a project about alternative energy? Like, do you consider it as a promising field? And I have second question.
As always. Would I be interested in an alternative energy project? I would say yes. In fact, in my professional work, I have some alternative energy stocks in the portfolio. And the main thing there is that
What kind of alternative energy?
doesn't matter. It's a business proposition. It needs to make money. It needs to make sense. If you want to build a solar farm in Norway, that's not going to work for me. If you want to build a hydropower project in Saudi Arabia, no, not really. Yeah, but yeah, I'm not religious about this. I'm not hostile to alternative energy, but I'm not one of these people that wants to invest in alternative energy to save the earth, whether it makes economic sense or not. I would look at it like any other business proposal.
And the second question, like, I give you some examples and you will need to choose without any additional information.
Okay.
Like, for example,
I'm ready.
just make
We're going to get examples here, and you need to speak loud. Actually, do you want to step up here?
It's not.
Okay. All right.
Like, first project.
Ready.
Real estate in a city in eastern Ukraine, Kiev or Minsk or something like this. Apartments, residential apartments.
You said Eastern Ukraine. Kiev is not in Eastern.
No, Eastern Europe. I meant
okay.
Eastern
Eastern
Europe,
Europe. Okay.
Belarus or
Okay.
or.
So real estate in Eastern Europe. Anywhere except Eastern Ukraine, yes, I'm interested. If it's somewhere I want to live at normal rates, if it's not somewhere I want to live, but as a real estate investment, possibly, but at a deep, deep discount, like 50 cents on the dollar, because I don't need to go there. If it's in a more dangerous zone, I could actually be interested in something exceptional in a more dangerous zone, but like 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. And by the way, and I know other people who would be interested in such.
Okay, new beauty in like pharmaceutical new beauty products, something like this, which produced in Ukraine, but it just has some logo in Switzerland and going to go to some like developed market.
Okay. New beauty product with produced in Ukraine, but some international
With international names.
presence or something. Okay. I'd have to see the business plan, I guess. That's a really big competitive thing. You're not really inventing something new. I mean, maybe it is a new way of doing it, or it's better in some way. But that's so. There's so many products in the beauty field that are sold purely on the colors of the box and the marketing. I don't know. But on the other hand, I don't want to sound sexist, but I cannot imagine a day anytime before, say, 5,000 years from now, at which women will not be interested in enhancing and maintaining their beauty. So it's a great long-term business idea. The need is huge and it will never go away in practical terms. So if you really have a better mousetrap in that field, that's big, that's scalable, that could be big business. But it would take, on the proof point, it would take some, to get me into it, and it's not my specialty, to get me into it or people I know, it would take some real hardcore proof, like why this thing is just better than anything since sliced bread.
New model of windmill, like which need to like how to say?
This is Shark Tank at Cycle. Okay, new model of windmill.
Yeah. Like which is
Don't need to define it. Yes, if it makes money, if it works, if it's better, you know. But it's, you know, show me the money, show me the plan, show me why this is better.
And I wanted to ask about one more case, but I forgot.
The answer is the same.
Okay,
But maybe somebody else wants.
we have an online question. Okay.
Can you give us 101 how to decide what percentage we have to give to investors?
What percentage you have to give to investors? Well, the first and foremost, this is actually a good question, and it's an important one to think about. And God, I don't want to talk about attitude again already just so much, but you should be prepared mentally to give away a lot. You know, if you can have the greatest idea in the world and you feel like you own this idea, darn it, I thought this up and nobody else is doing this and I can build it and it's mine. But you need $1 million to deploy it or build a prototype or something, and you have $5.53 in your pocket, you know what? That person who's going to put all that money in and you're just going to put an idea in, that person deserves a lot. Maybe, and even the majority of the upside. And so one distinction I would make is if this is your first go, if this is your first project, kind of like Yagub's pitch with the multi-millionaire that he pitched, he asked for $25,000 to trade, and he promised him that whatever money he made, he would give the investor 70%. He would only keep 30%. I thought that was pretty reasonable. It was, I mean, it might seem unreasonable. Yagub was doing all the work. It was his trade. All that guy was doing is sitting back and waiting for the money. But that guy took risk. Yagub didn't have any money to put into it. And the risk was all on the guy. Yagub said, if I lose the money, that's it. I'm willing to give you most of the earnings, but I'm not taking any of the risk. So of course the guy got the lion's share of the money. That seemed perfectly fine. Now the guy forgetting to pay Yagub for 3 years, that wasn't so cool. But I think rather than put a percentage on it, what I'm saying is prepare yourself mentally, particularly on your first round, to give away the majority. And that is okay. If somebody else is taking the majority of the risk, putting the majority of all of the money in, they deserve to get the majority of the benefit. And if you're successful, you know, Yagub got 300,000 euros out of it in the end, and he was able to put that in another business and hold on to a greater stake. So one size does not fit all. And I think basically think in proportions of what you're bringing to the table. If you're asking for $1 million and you, the seed founders, are putting in $500,000, and you're asking the donor, the foundation, the government, the large company, or whoever you're going to, you know, I don't encourage governments, of course, but they're there. You're asking them to put the other half in. You have significant risk, and you're contributing the idea, the intellectual capital, and so on. So I would not give them 50-50. If I'm putting half the money in, and they're just helping me with the rest, and I'm bringing the ideas, the technology, the people, and so on, I might say you can have 25%. And if they like the idea and they think they'll make money, they might take that.
Like, I charge you 25% when you invested in my trading. Yeah.
You did, you
Yeah.
bastard. You killed Kenny.
No, you actually made 20%.
Yes, I did. That worked out. I thought that was reasonable. Yeah, that's right. I put the money in.
Even without the business plan, but I made a presentation.
You made a good presentation, and you had a good track record. But yeah, you did all the work. But I put the money in, so I give you 25%. Yeah. Do we have another one from online, Grace? I thought you were making a gesture. Okay. I'm very impressed that you're still here at this time of night. It's almost 9 p.m. in Vilnius right now. So, and we haven't had dinner yet. Can you believe these people are still here? Any last questions, or was it beer time? All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming to South for 16. Woo! Thank you too.